The global business community was abuzz with excitement as the much-anticipated Global Leaders Summit 2030 was set to commence in New York City. A gathering of the world's most influential CEOs, policymakers, and economic visionaries. The summit promised to be a landmark event. But what truly electrified the atmosphere was a last-minute announcement that Barron Trump, son of President Donald Trump, would be attending as a special guest. At just 24, Barron had maintained a largely private life despite his family's global fame. Unlike his father and older siblings, he had not yet made waves in politics or business. Many saw him as reserved, intelligent, and somewhat of an enigma. So, when organizers revealed that he would be making an appearance, speculation ran wild. Why was he there? What could he possibly contribute to a room full of titans? One of the keynote speakers at the summit was Jonathan Carter, the charismatic and controversial CEO of Carter Global, a trillion-dollar conglomerate spanning technology, real estate, and artificial intelligence. Known for his sharp business acumen and ruthless strategies, Carter had a reputation for humiliating those who challenged him. As the event kicked off, industry leaders took the stage, presenting bold ideas on global markets, digital transformation, and economic sustainability. But when Barron Trump was unexpectedly invited to a panel discussion on the future of business leadership, murmurs filled the hall. It was one thing for him to attend, but to speak alongside world-renowned entrepreneurs? Dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit, Barron walked onto the stage with quiet confidence. The audience watched intently, waiting to see how he would handle himself. Sitting beside him were some of the biggest names in the industry, including Jonathan Carter himself. And then, the moment that would go viral across the world unfolded. The auditorium was packed with some of the most powerful minds in the world, CEOs, policymakers, and economic strategists. The large LED screens showcased the panel's title, The Future of Business Leadership, a New Era of Innovation and Strategy. Barron Trump, sitting calmly at the far end of the panel, adjusted his microphone as the moderator, a well-known financial journalist, turned to Jonathan Carter. "Mr. Carter," she began, "with AI and automation rapidly reshaping industries, how do you see the future of corporate leadership evolving?" Carter, a man whose mere presence commanded attention, leaned forward with a smirk. "Look," he said, his voice dripping with the confidence of a man who had built an empire from scratch. "The future belongs to those who innovate, take risks, and eliminate inefficiencies. But let's be real, true leadership isn't about legacy or family names. It's about power, strategy, and cutting the dead weight. The days of dynastic business empires are over." The crowd nodded, some clapping in agreement. Carter was known for his brutal honesty. He had no patience for entitled heirs or privileged elites who inherited wealth without proving their worth. And then, almost as if he had planned it, he turned his gaze to Barron Trump. "With all due respect," Carter continued, "we have a lot of self-made entrepreneurs here today. Some of us had to fight our way up from nothing. So, Barron, tell us, why should anyone take you seriously in a room full of people who built their success with their own hands?" The question stung like a bullet. The room fell silent. Everyone's eyes darted between Carter and Barron. Some expected the young Trump to fumble, stammer, or shy away. Instead, Barron smiled. It wasn't a nervous smile. It was a knowing smile, confident one. He picked up his microphone and leaned in. "Mr. Carter," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I appreciate the question. I really do. But let me ask you something. How many of your competitors did you put out of business just because you had the capital to do so? How many smaller startups did you crush under the weight of Carter Global's expansion?" A murmur spread across the audience. Carter's expression darkened slightly. "Let me tell you what real leadership is," Barron continued. "It's not just about cutting dead weight or eliminating inefficiencies. It's about responsibility, vision, legacy. You talk about fighting from the ground up, but tell me, how do you define success? Is it just profit margins and stock values? Because if that's all you care about, you've already lost sight of what leadership means." The room erupted in applause. Carter, who had never been challenged so boldly, sat back, momentarily speechless. But Barron wasn't done yet. You say the days of dynastic empires are over, he continued. But history tells us otherwise. Success isn't about where you start. It's about what you do with what you're given. Some start with nothing and build their way up. Some inherit wealth but use it to create opportunities for others. The question isn't how you start. It's how you lead. The applause grew louder. Even some of Carter's own business allies were nodding in agreement. Carter finally leaned forward, his smirk returning. Well, Barron, you've got a sharp tongue. But words mean nothing without action. Show me something real. Show me leadership beyond speeches. Barron didn't hesitate. Challenge accepted. The crowd gasped. What was he about to do? The atmosphere in the hall had shifted. What had begun as an innocent panel discussion had now turned into a battle of wits between Barron Trump and Jonathan Carter, one of the youngest members of a political dynasty against a self-made billionaire with a reputation for dominance. Carter leaned forward. His piercing gaze locked onto Barron. All right, Barron, he said, his voice dripping with skepticism. You've got a way with words. But words don't change the world. Deals do. Strategies do. Since you're so confident about your definition of leadership, let's put it to the test. The room went still. What was he about to propose? Carter continued. I'll give you a real-world challenge. Right here, right now. Carter Global has been in negotiations for months to acquire a next-generation AI company called Novatech. Their technology is revolutionary, but they're struggling to scale. They need a leader to take them global. So tell me, Barron, if you were in my position, how would you handle this deal? A low murmur rippled through the audience. This was not an easy question. Novatech was one of the most talked about AI startups in the world. The fact that Carter Global was pursuing them meant there were billions of dollars at stake. Most people in the room expected Barron to falter. After all, he wasn't a business mogul. He had never closed a high-stakes deal in his life. But Barron didn't flinch. He took a deep breath, adjusted his microphone, and delivered a response that shocked everyone in the room. Mr. Carter, he said, the mistake you're making is looking at Novatech as just another acquisition. But here's the reality, if you buy them outright, you'll kill what makes them special. Novatech's biggest asset isn't its technology. It's its people. The moment you turn them into just another subsidiary, you lose their innovation. Carter raised an eyebrow, but he didn't interrupt. Barron pressed on. Instead of a takeover, I'd propose a strategic partnership. Keep their leadership intact, give them access to Carter Global's resources, but let them operate with full independence. You don't need to own them to benefit from them. In fact, if you let them innovate freely while leveraging your infrastructure, their value will multiply. And guess what? Instead of one successful company, you'll have two, yours and theirs. The audience sat in stunned silence. Barron had just outlined a counteroffer to Carter's own acquisition strategy. And the most shocking part? He was right. Even Carter's closest advisors were whispering to each other, realizing the brilliance of what had just been said. If Carter had followed through with his original plan, Novatech could have crumbled under corporate bureaucracy. But Barron's alternative? It was a power move that protected both companies and maximized their potential. Jonathan Carter tapped his fingers on the table, clearly caught off guard. Then, for the first time that evening, he let out a small chuckle. Well, I'll be damned, he said, shaking his head. That's actually not a bad idea. The crowd erupted in applause. Some of the world's most powerful executives were now looking at Barron Trump in a new light. He had just gone head-to-head with a billionaire and held his own. But Barron wasn't finished yet. He leaned back in his chair and added, like I said earlier, leadership isn't just about power. It's about vision. If you want to build something that lasts, you don't crush innovation, you empower it. And with that, he had won the moment. Carter, despite his competitive nature, nodded in respect. All right, Barron, I'll give you that one. But let's see if you can actually do it in the real world. Barron's response was immediate. I already have. The room went silent. What did he mean? Had Barron already made a deal no one knew about? For a moment, the entire room was frozen in silence. Had Barron just implied that he had already done something big in the business world, without anyone knowing? Jonathan Carter's expression shifted. He wasn't a man who liked being caught off guard, and yet, here he was, staring at the youngest person on the panel, waiting for an explanation. "What do you mean, you already have?" Carter asked, narrowing his eyes. Barron leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "I mean exactly what I said," he replied smoothly. "While you were trying to acquire Novatech, I was helping them find an alternative. One that didn't require them to be absorbed by a corporate giant." A collective gasp swept through the audience. "No way," someone whispered. The moderator, struggling to process what was unfolding, quickly jumped in. "Barron, are you saying you were already involved in a deal with Novatech?" Barron nodded. "That's right. You see, I've been quietly working with a group of investors who believe in a different model of business, one that values partnerships over takeovers. Novatech is a company with a vision, but what they needed wasn't a buyout. What they needed was capital, infrastructure, and, most importantly, freedom." Jonathan Carter's jaw tightened. "And who, exactly, are these investors?" Barron let the suspense hang in the air for a moment before delivering the punchline. "The Trump Innovation Fund." Boom! The entire room exploded with noise. Executives, journalists, and business leaders started talking over each other. Some were shocked. Some were impressed. Some were frantically checking their phones to confirm what they had just heard. Carter, despite his frustration, couldn't help but let out a small, knowing laugh. "Well played," he muttered under his breath. The Trump Innovation Fund, a new investment entity quietly launched by Barron himself, had stayed under the radar. Unlike his father's real estate empire or his siblings' ventures, Barron had taken a different approach. He had spent years studying the world of venture capital, silently assembling a team of powerful investors who shared his vision. And now, he had just made his first major move, securing a game-changing partnership with Novatech before Carter Global could swallow them up. "Leadership isn't just about taking control," Barron said, turning back to Carter. "Sometimes the smartest move is knowing when to step back and let innovation thrive. You taught me that tonight." The audience roared with applause. Even some of Carter's own advisors were nodding in approval. For the first time, the billionaire CEO sat back in his chair, looking at Barron Trump with something he hadn't expected to feel: respect. The moment Barron Trump dropped the bombshell about the Trump Innovation Fund, the entire world took notice. Within minutes, social media exploded with headlines. "Police car light, Barron Trump outsmarts billionaire CEO in live business debate." "Police car light, the young Trump just changed the future of business. Is he the next big deal?" "Police car light, Jonathan Carter's plan derailed as Barron Trump secures Novatech partnership." News channels ran the clip repeatedly, showing the exact moment Carter's confidence cracked and Barron took control of the conversation. Financial analysts on CNBC, Bloomberg, and Fox Business dissected Barron's strategy, praising his visionary leadership and negotiation skills. The next morning, the front pages of major newspapers told the same story. The Wall Street Journal, "A New Trump Era? How Barron Trump Just Redefined Business Strategy." The New York Times, "Heir or Leader? Barron Trump's Bold Move Stuns Corporate America." Financial Times, "Trump versus Carter, How the Youngest Trump Outmaneuvered a Business Titan." But it wasn't just the media reacting. Inside the White House, President Donald Trump was reportedly watching the event live when his son shut down Carter on stage. According to White House insiders, Trump turned to his aides with a smirk and said, "That's my boy." When reporters later asked President Trump for a comment, he simply said, "The kid's smart, maybe even smarter than me. Who knows?" Jonathan Carter's response. Carter, despite being a ruthless businessman, wasn't a sore loser. The following day, he publicly acknowledged Barron's move. "I underestimated him," Carter admitted in a CNBC interview.